I would quickly like to introduce our speaker for today, who's Mr. Mansoor Mohammed. Um, a quick introduction that Mansoor leads diverse teams of professionals to new levels of success in a variety of highly competitive organizations, cutting edge markets, and fast paced environments through trainings, mentoring, and counseling. Along with that, Mansoor also comes with over 18 years of experience and commercial industry knowledge in portfolio program and project management. And without any further delay, Mansoor, I'll hand over the session to you.
All right, team, welcome everyone to the session. And as going part of our webinar series, this is the third part. And as Sushil rightly mentioned, my name is Mansoor. I'll be your facilitator for the next hour, and we'll have some candid conversations about developing agile leadership and growth mindset. I've been working with organizations like Airbus Helicopters, Optus, Telstra in assisting them into business agility and business transformation. That's a space which I'm looking after, as well as I'm from a research background. My PhD is in agile governance. I do talk about agility in governance and agility in leadership. That's what I do talk about. So without wasting further time, let's straight get into the topic, where we'll talk about some leadership and growth mindset and see how we go. So this is a good quote from Mick Gurston. He talks about the problem is not with our organization realizing that they need to transform. The problem is with the organization using old managerial frameworks. So traditional project management has been there for a very, very long time, right? And they are traditional practices, approach, philosophies, and frameworks which are there from past, and now things have to change, right? So we are competing in the world of digital age, where everything is moving, right? There are moving parts of the business. The customer looks for competitive advantage. The customer looks for faster delivery of projects and solutions, right? And the old managerial frameworks with hierarchy may not work in certain conditions, right? So in the view, there are some people who look at pure traditional, I call them purists, right? Purist, traditional purist. And some part of the world, they are purist in the agile, right? So we need to look at how things actually scale up and how things blend at an enterprise, at an organization level, and what could be some frameworks which could enable new ways of working. Okay. So John Carter, one of the thought leader, he talks about the world is changing at a rapid rate, and the basic systems, structures, and culture built over the past century cannot keep up with the demand. So he proposes new ways of working, right? And the new systems and the new cultures. And that's where we have to start looking at how do we keep up the pace, and how do we rethink the organizations, right? Rethink how organizations work. And that is where we need to start looking at, do we need a new type of leadership? What does leadership mean, right? What does leadership actually bring to table? Okay, so that is very important. We cannot trash the solutions what we know and build all over again. Instead, try to reintroduce a second operating system, which should be familiar for most of the successful entrepreneurs. And we just so happen to have one of them on our fingertips. And that's what we are going to discuss about today. So John Carter said it's very important for us to make the operating system work smoothly and with a flow, so that there is no bottlenecks, there is no lag of decision making, correct? So that's where we need to start looking at SAFe. So he's Dean Leffingwell, one of our chief methodologists, and he talks about every business is a software business. So every business, yes, it's a software business, but also we need to look at the human aspect of the business, right? So it's very important to look at the human aspect of the business. Achieving a state of business agility means the entire organization is just not development. It's just not development. It's engaging continuously in proactively delivering innovative business solutions faster than the competitors. And that's why we need to look at business agility as a concept and move forward. So business agility requires some competencies which we are going to see, and leadership is one among them, and we are going to see more detail about the leadership. So it needs development to go agile. It needs finances, the financial frameworks to go agile. We'll be covering finance in the future topics as we go. The people need to be agile. They need to move from a hierarchical organization to more holocratic organization, and they need to. The marketing has to go agile. The legal has to go agile. The operation has to go agile. Right? Every part of the business needs to have an lean and agile mindset. That is important. We saw this in the last webinar, the 7 core competencies, and today I'm going to cover one of the competencies, which is lean agile leadership. So every week we'll go into one of the competencies as we go, 7 core competencies. So today we start with the leadership, and then we'll move to continuous learning culture, and then organization agility, lean portfolio management, enterprise delivery, agile product delivery, and team and technical agility. So over a period of time, we'll start going into each of them, starting from leadership, and then continuous learning culture, organization agility, and so on. So now let's dwell deep into what is agile leadership. When we talk about leadership, it is about leading by examples. It's about leading the change. When we talk about leading by examples, here we are talking about how do you become an authentic leader, right? As a leader, what is that authenticity we talk about? Leadership is not a choice. It is built over a period of time. The key ingredients of leadership is you need to have empathy, you need to have emotional intelligence, you need to help people to move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, right? You need to lead by examples. You need to be authentic, right? You need to decentralize decision making, right? So decisions can be centralized, can be decentralized. When we talk about centralization of decision making, the decisions which are frequent, the decisions which require local information, the decisions which are not significant economies of scales, these need to be decentralized. So you need to empower your teams, okay? Versus you're looking at centralized decisions which are significant economies of scale. For example, your organization strategy, that has to be centralized. Your product strategy, that has to be centralized, right? The decisions which are infrequent, the decisions which you don't make frequent, those have to be centralized. And the decisions which require information from the management team, right? Those have to be centralized. So you need to start looking at how do you empower your teams to decentralize decision making and what decisions you will centralize. That mindset and that change is really important for the leadership team. Yes, we know when we talk about decentralization of decision making, it is letting go a few things, correct? So it's very important to know what to let go and what to hold. Again, when we talk about decentralization making, it's about empowering people. It's about making them understand how they can actually make a change in the decision-making process on what they are doing and how that actually impacts their ways of working. So when I used to work for EMC Data Storage Solutions, when my team used to come and ask for any solution, I would ask them, can you come up with probable solution? So I would be a coach, I would be a mentor. I would ask them powerful questions as to why do you think this is the problem and what do you think is the probable solution? Correct? So it is very important for us as business leaders to ask those powerful questions. If you keep only asking questions and not providing them an answer, that also becomes a challenge. They feel that the manager does not understand anything. So you need to think between the various stance as a leader, right? From coaching to a mentoring to a teaching to a facilitating. So all these are different styles. So when you wear all these different hats, you need to make your team members understand you're in coaching stance. When you're in a coaching stance, you talk about, exploring the problem together, right? Coming up with options together, creating your team, or getting your team committed towards what they want to deliver, correct? So that is where you need to start understanding as to how would you actually help team empower, and how will you coach team. During this coaching session, if you find that some of the team members might need a mentoring session, right? So get into a mentoring stance and talk about your experience. It's very important to talk about your experience being a mentor. Okay, that's important. And then as a facilitator, probably you'll help them facilitate some sessions with the senior leadership team, right? And then you will also talk about how would you teach them if they have a lack of competency in some of the domains, in some of the areas. So you need to talk about how can you actually help them uh, teach a particular concept. So that is where decentralization of decision making comes in, and how would you use coaching, mentoring, teaching, and facilitating stance to make them empowered, right? And that is also linked to emotional intelligence. You need to be a leader who is emotionally intelligent. How would you help empathize with your team? How do you take them to the next level, right? How would you actually help them to be a long life learner? Because learning never stops, right? So as leaders, we need to not only build our knowledge and competency, but also you need to build team members' knowledge and competency. And this competency is built over a period of time. So the teams get to have experience, and they get to build over a period of time. So you need to be a long life learner. You need to help grow others, right? So that's important. And as a leader, you need to help grow others, because they would become future managers, right? And if you don't empower them, you will not have breakfast, lunch, or dinner. You will be solving all the problems, you'll be doing all the firefighting, and at the end of the day, you will not get to actually solve other issues which you as a leader need to help make a change, right? As a leader, you need to lead the change, right? You're the change agent. You're the enabler of change. You're the one who's making change actually happen. So you as a leader need to enable the change. Whether you're using Kotter 8-step approach, whether you're talking about using Kubler-Ross model, whether you're talking about using any of the management practices, right, or change management practices, it's very important. So it's very important to first look at the vision and change the vision, and also make people understand what the vision is. Many organizations have great vision statements, but unfortunately, they're just motherhood statements. Okay, they don't mean anything. They say that we need to be the world leader number one, but what does it mean for the team? What does it mean for the organization? What does it mean for my customer? Right? That is very, very important. Not just creating a motherhood statement of vision and then uh, seeing how things actually work, right? So that is very important to see how actually what vision means, and how does it impact the strategy of an organization, right? How do you actually build a strategy? How do you actually develop on the strategy? A lot of organizations have great strategy and they got great strategic intent, which is great, which is fine. But what happens in the strategic delivery part, right? So what happens in the strategic delivery part? So that is very important. Uh, you need to enable change as a leader, right? So you need to enable change as a leader. You need to provide that bandwidth. You need to provide that capacity. You need to provide that view of change. Correct? That's important. You need to build a coalition for change. You need to create the right partners who understand what the change is. You need to ensure people's psychological safety. They need to feel safe when they come and talk to you. That's very important. They should not feel, they should not be left behind. Uh, you should treat them like your child, right? So if you have a child who is not performing well, who does not get a grade but a B or a C grade in school, do you think you'll let him go? Not at all, right? You will help him, you'll coach him, you'll train him, you'll mentor him. So that is very important. So ensuring psychological safety. The other day, I was just going through a video from Simon Sinek, and he said there was a company called Next Jump. And in Next Jump, if there were people who did not perform well, they did not let them go or retrench them, but they made them to be trained, to be coached, to be understood as to how their competencies have to be built, right? So training your team members, coaching your team members is very, very important. You need to help them understand what they should be doing, what they should not be doing. You should help them to unlearn some practices before they learn some new practices. So as a leader, it's very important to lead by examples and also leading change, which plays a very, very important role. And when we talk about change here, we are not talking about the project change or any of the scope, time, cost changes, right? Here we are talking about change at an organization level. And change is not easy, right? And in most of my programs, I show a beautiful video which is called Backward Brain Bicycle, right? So change is not going to be easy. Change is hard. Why? Because it requires a change in mindset. It requires change of neural pathways in your brain, correct? You've been working on one way, in one way of doing something, right? And now you ask change. You look at the new ways of doing things. There will be a disruption in the mindset, right? So there'll be a neural pathway change. And then you need to start looking at how can you actually make people comfortable with the new ways of working. So that is important. To have a lean, agile mindset, that is very, very important, which talks about transparency, honesty, communication, coordination, right? So those things are very, very important. The core values play a very important. So if in doubt, you need to always go back to your first principles, right? So you need to go back to your first principles, check. As an agile leader, am I enabling people? As an agile leader, am I looking at the growth of the people? As an agile leader, am I retrospecting? Am I going back and retrospecting, right? As an agile leader, am I looking at how things are working, right? So what are the safe principles? How does the agile mindset work? Correct. So that is very important. Rather than just having lofty statements and lofty vocabulary, which sounds great, but when it comes to practice, things don't work. Correct. So that is very important. And see how you can actually build your core team with all these knowledge and practices and tools and mechanisms, right? That is absolutely very important. Okay, let's move a little further as we go. So leading by example, as I mentioned, right? So you need to be authentic. So as a leader, you need to demonstrate desired behavior, right? You need to set an example. As Albert Einstein said, setting an example is not the main meaning of influencing others, it's only a means. So you need to be authentic. As a leader, you need to require model desired profession and ethical behavior. So when you're ethical, your teams also tend to be ethical. You need to demonstrate that, right? You need to show emotional intelligence. You need to describe how leaders identify and manage their emotions and how those of others through self-awareness, regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So let's go to this a bit of emotional intelligence and look at self-awareness, right? So there is something called a Johari window, which talks about, there are areas about yourself where some areas are hidden, some areas you demonstrate to others, and some areas which is hidden to you and hidden to others too. So it's very important to unearth those areas, understand the emotions, have self-regulation, right? You need to have empathy. You need to have social skills, right? Uh, you need to motivate others. You need to have a process of self-regulation where you can actually self-mandate or self-encourage yourself. Okay? You need to be self-motivated. As a long life learner, you engage on ongoing voluntary and a pursuit for knowledge. So learning of knowledge should never stop. So it's rightly said that the learning never stops. The moment you think about you have completed learning or you have done everything with learning, then that becomes a challenge or a problem, right? So it's very important for us to understand uh, learning and see how learning actually helps you move forward. You need to grow others. You need to be a leader who encourage development of leadership, right? So it's leadership is not a choice, but you need to help others to actually build more leaders. You need to build more replicas. You need to make more replicas of yourself, right? You need to provide people with technical guidance, resources, uh, create this community of practices where you can make people's life easy, correct? So that is important. Decentralized decision making, moving the authority to where the decision and information is. If your software developer needs to believe that there is a release which is ready to happen, yeah, empower them. Let them actually go and think if it's the right time for release. Is my customer waiting for something to receive? Is there a market cycle which requires a product or service to be delivered? Right? So it's very important for you as a, a business leader to think, encourage, help people grow, decentralized decision making wherever it's required, be emotionally intelligent. The one of the first victims of we being emotionally insensitive are our family members, right? So you need to make sure we be very clear. Uh, how are you emotionally intelligent, and how can you help your family members and your teams and your businesses actually uh, help not become a victim of empathy. Okay, so that is important. Okay, that's great, excellent. Okay, so as a leader, you need to move away from a power-oriented pathological culture. Okay, uh, you need to move away from teams being low cooperative. Right? That doesn't work. Having a low cooperating team does not actually help anyone, right? So it does not generate business insights. It just not just help any of the teams. So you need to move away from low cooperating towards high cooperating, right? You need to have a generative culture where the teams cooperate, right? Where the teams work together as a high performing team. Uh, you need to move away from blaming the messenger. If someone comes to you with a problem, you do not need to actually push that away and say, hey, that doesn't exist, right? So it's very important for you to actually uh, not neglect the messenger, not blame the messenger, but actually train the messenger. Okay, if the messenger comes in, you need to ask questions. You need to help get ask powerful questions to get answers, right? Rather than just blaming the messenger and trying to push away. If someone comes running to me and say, hey, Mansoor, got a problem, and I say, hey, why do you got a problem? And I just react badly, what will happen? They will run away. They will next time not come to me. They will feel that, okay, if I present this problem to Mansoor, this person is going to react badly, correct? So it's very important for you to train your messengers. You need to train the people who come and deliver the message and pass the message, and see how you can actually train them, right? You need to move away from responsibility show, narrow responsibility, or myopic responsibilities, to more shared responsibilities, where organizations and teams talking about shared responsibilities. That's important. You need to move away from collaboration discouraged collaboration tolerated versus collaboration encouraged, right? So that is important. You need to help teams move from discouraging of collaboration towards more encouraging collaboration, because that's where actually work happens, right? So when you talk about collaboration, you're talking about building high performance team, working with another team, right? So you need to see how the collaboration between the teams. So in this program, also the 2-day program which I conduct for KnowledgeHut, which is called Leading Safe, you basically talk about, we talk about here as where good ideas come from. The good ideas come from collaboration. They come from hunches of ideas, right? They come from hunches of ideas. When one idea collides with the other idea and the other idea collides with the other idea, that is where the collaboration happens, and that's where the hunches of ideas, they work together, and that's how things actually happen, right? Uh, so you need to allow innovation, right? So innovation planning, having hackathons, right? Allowing team and space for the teams to go ahead and work on things which make sense, adds value, right? Build in iterations, deliver prototypes, right? Or that one little thing which actually helps teams to work better, right? So that's where is important, right? So you need to encourage collaborations and allow those ideas to incubate, to mingle. That's important. Failure leading to scapegoating, right? So that is important. So you just can't blame anyone because of the failure. So as a leader, when you stand in front of success, you need to stand in front of failures too, right? So that's true quality of an agile leader, where you stand, you front end, and you say, hey, you know what, this has not been working, right? This, we failed here badly, right? And take that collective ownership. And you need to be in the forefront, not just scapegoat someone and say, hey, it's because of the developer, it's because of someone, where we failed, right? You need to move from that culture, failure leading to justice. You need to move towards failure to leading towards more improvements. So you learn from failures. You fail fast and you learn from failures, and you move ahead with your failures, right? Um, it's difficult to let go a team who's gone through a disastrous project. But again, if you actually work with the team to understand why they failed, how they can improve, and what can be done to actually improve, that saves a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it helps team to better think and better understand and move. So that's where it is very important, and that's where we have to move towards. Finally, we have to move away from innovation crushed, right? When you talk about innovation, it's just not the ideas which are bubbling in your team's mind, right? So these ideas can actually make wonders. For example, in EMC, we used to have innovation conferences, and I help organizations set up innovation life cycles. So during one of the innovation life cycle, there was an idea which came up about, someone not able to remember multiple passwords, correct? And here what happened was, when this idea went through an ideation phase, and then it finally, got into an approval stage and moved forward, it led to development of a product called remote support authentication, which is nothing but your RSA keys, right? So the keys what you have, right? That's the RSA keys. So innovation should not be crushed. It should, not be led to problems, but innovation should be implemented. You need to allow time and team for the teams. You should allow the time and space for the teams to incubate ideas, build on ideas. Atlassian does this really well. Atlassian provides half a day every month, or every month, for teams to do whatever they want, but at the end they should produce some idea which will enable innovation, correct? So Atlassian, it's a software company here in Australia, based out of Sydney. So that's where it is important. So where how you lead your teams into innovation, provide them time and space, and ask them to produce something which adds value to the customers, to the business, and improves the way of working. That is forefront. So as an agile leader, you need to encourage a generative culture. You need to encourage a performance-oriented culture, which is built on trust, which is built on collaboration. It's built on innovation. It's built on consensus. It's built on a high performing team. It's built on a team which is highly cooperating, right? And it's a team which shares and shoulders the responsibilities together. And it's about collaboration and encouraging, right? And trying to implement innovation as well as to move forward and be forward thinking and look ahead in the period of time rather than looking behind as we go. So this is called an 8-step approach, leading change. This is a very interesting model. So as a consultant, when I go to organizations and I help implement change, first we need to establish a sense of urgency. Why is it important and why is it now? What happens if we don't do it now? What is the impact? So many a times when I talk to the leadership teams, I do discuss about the organizations who did not evolve, uh, like the Kodaks, like the Nokias, like the blockbusters, right? So there are a lot of organizations who did not evolve, who did not change, correct? So you need to establish a sense of urgency. Why now? What happens if we don't do it now? You need to create a powerful guiding coalition, right? So you need to pick the people who can become a powerful coalition. So you're basically trying to find those seeds which you can plant in an organization, and these seeds become saplings, and from saplings they become plants, and from plants they become trees, and the trees becoming a forest, right? That's important. You need to create a powerful guiding force, a powerful guiding coalition. You need to develop a vision and a strategy. As I mentioned, it should just not be motherhood statements. You need to develop vision, right? You need to energize the team towards working towards the vision and the strategy. That's very important, right? The whole organization has to be energized, right? And you need to communicate the vision. That's important, to communicate the vision. You need to communicate the vision at all levels, right? At a team level, at a program level, at a portfolio level, at an organization level. You need to communicate the vision. You need to do drum beating. You need to make people understand, why are we here? Good organizations start with why. Okay, so it's very important to start with why. You need to make your customer understand, why is it important? What happens if you don't do it now? Right? So communicating the vision, the broad-based vision is important, and then empowering your teams for action. So empowering employees for broad-based action, you need to empower them, right? So that's very important, and that plays a very important role. And then you generate short-term wins. So this winning should become a habit, right? You need to generate short-term wins. You need to consolidate and gain and produce more wins as you go, and keep winning and keep winning and make winning the habits. So look at short-term wins where you look at the low-hanging fruits, but also you need to consolidate and produce more wins so that you make winning as a habit, and that becomes a part of the culture, becomes a part of the DNA of the organization, so that they can produce more wins, and that becomes a habit. And finally, you need to anchor the new approaches. It's just not the consultant who turns around and everything changes, right? So you need to anchor the new approach in the culture and see how you can actually anchor the approaches in the culture, consolidate gains, and make the change stick, so that when the consultant turns around, everything should not go back into the way it was. So very interesting, very important. In this 2-day program, I do cover more in detail about how do you establish a sense of urgency, how do you create a powerful team, developing a vision, communicating the vision, empowering employees with broad-based action, generate wins, consolidate gains, and anchor the new approach in the culture. Changing culture is not going to be easy. It's hard. It's not going to be easy. It'll take time. It takes effort. So we as SAFE program consultants start off with a half-a-day executive briefing at a leadership level, make them understand what Agile is and what Agile is not, and what happens, right? So we need to make them understand and then set up a roadmap and then start looking at how do we implement the change and how do we make the change system. Finally, the management's challenge, it's not enough that management commit themselves to quality and productivity. They must know what it is they must do, and such responsibilities cannot be delegated. So one of the thought leaders, W.D. Deming, right, and he's the father of modern project management. He talks about, you know, the management challenge. That's very important for us to go in and start looking at how can we make those changes stick and how do we commit for those changes, and that's important as we go. So as part of my consulting engagements, what I do a business agility maturity assessment where I measure teams and businesses on their 7 core competencies, right? Uh, and also the sub-dimensions. So I have a tailored question here. I ask questions where people do answer the question at a team level, at a program level, at a portfolio level, at a business level, and check and measure the level of agility at different levels, whether it's talking about team and technical agility, whether it's talking about customer centricity and design thinking, right? Whether the teams are pre-crawling, crawling, walking, running, or flying, right? So we get to measure, we do an assessment, develop a cadence and release on demand, right? And have a DevOps and continuous delivery pipeline, solution and delivery systems, and also coordinating trains and suppliers, and continuously evolving live systems, strategy and investment funding. We'll also talk about the LPM, lean portfolio management, which is my favorite area. We'll talk about agile project governance. So in our coming series, we will be covering, you know, all the other competencies. We'll talk about lean governance. We'll talk about mindset and principles, leading the change, leading by examples, strategic agility, right? We'll talk about lean business operations, lean thinking people, relentless improvement, uh, so on and so forth, innovation culture, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's an important area we should look at. So every week we'll transfer through each of these sections. So please do reach out to KnowledgeHut for our next trainings. So we do have training scheduled every month. So please go ahead and take a look at the calendar and see how best you can actually look at joining the sessions, right? If you're looking for any training or consulting help, do visit www.knowledgehut.com and register yourself. There'll be more exciting programs, webinars, and content which will be available soon. All right, I look forward to welcoming you in the programs which I deliver, and thank you for joining on a busy Friday. I hope you can relax, enjoy your weekend, and stay tuned for my next webinar happening the first Friday of every month. That is where we will have more action coming in. And next session will be, again, we'll be covering one of the core competencies as we go. Stay tuned for updates and look forward to meeting you in the next session. Thank you so much.